You are now witnessing the 17th interview on the Indies Corner podcast. You already know who it is. It's your host, the legend Todd Finney himself. In the building with me, I got a very special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome former fighter and current trainer, IceMan Jon Scully. IceMan Jon, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine.
All right.
All right, man. Before we get into it, man, first thing I want to say is, I appreciate this opportunity and I appreciate, the interview.
Thank you. No, I appreciate you having me. It's an honor to be on the show. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. You're welcome. All right, so let's get into it. I know you said you was doing some training yesterday, right?
Yeah. I have a fighter that's actually fighting this Thursday in Montreal, Stephen Butler on ESPN Plus. He's fighting a big fight for Canada against Steve Rolls. They're the two best guys, two best middleweights in Canada. So they're fighting against each other on Thursday.
Okay, you said they're fighting in Canada?
Yeah, Montreal. Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to be flying out there soon?
I'm going to drive out there later tonight.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm just start from the beginning. Like, tell us like how you first got into the sport of boxing.
My father was a big boxing fan, and him and my mother were divorced, so I used to stay with him on the weekends, and he had a lot of books for me to read. And the first three books I ever read in my life was from cover to cover was Willie Pep's autobiography, Sugar Ray Robinson's autobiography, and Muhammad Ali's autobiography. So that's the kind of stuff I was reading every weekend. And so I started getting, watching the fights with him. And back in the day, it used to be a thing where all the biggest fights were on television, free TV every weekend. So there was fights on 3 different channels on Saturday and 3 different channels during the day on Sunday. So, and I'm talking Sugar Ray Leonard, Marvin Hagler, Tommy Hearns, Roberto Duran, Larry Holmes, like those kind of fights. And so all I did was watch boxing with him constantly. And finally, when I was 14, he brought me to a gym for the first time. And that's it. I've been there ever since.
Wow. So you say you read a lot of books?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so like I seen a post that you made one time about how amateurs, like becoming an amateur fighter, is so different from like back then. So like tell us the difference between becoming an amateur back then and now. Like why is the process so different? Like a lot more paperwork or something like that?
Oh yeah, it's funny. Because I save everything from my career, pictures and flyers and posters and all that kind of stuff, articles, and so I still have it's in my scrapbook. I have the form that I had to fill when I was 15 years old to have my first fight, and all it was your name, address, your phone number, and a picture of you, and that's it. And now you have to fill out, so many. I mean, you have to fill out paperwork. Like you have to go online. You have to fill out paperwork, and to become a coach, to work the corner, you have to take a 100-question test, 100 questions on the internet. And if you don't pass, you can't be a boxer. You can't be you can't get your license. So it's a little different, a little more extreme right now.
Wow. So you say you have to take 100-question test?
Yeah, you have to take 100-question tests to become a coach. Yeah. And back in the day, you just fill out name, address, and your phone number, and you sign it. That's it.
Wow. So that's definitely a longer process. Wow.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Like since you're from Connecticut, did you attend a lot of the televised cards at the Mohegan Sun Casino?
Yeah, well, mostly most of the fights were at Foxwoods, and back in the day, everybody fought at Foxwoods. James Toney, Macho Camacho, Larry Holmes, Butterbean. Everybody fought at Foxwoods. It was a huge place to hold fights, and now they hold a fight there every once in a while, and at the Mohegan Sun, but not like they used to.
Got you. But weren't you recently, like, were you inducted there at the Mohegan Sun Casino?
I was in. They have the Connecticut Boxing Hall of Fame there. I was
Yeah.
inducted in 2009.
Okay.
You know, and every time I go there for some event or something, I always do a little video. I show people it's a room, and they have
Mm,
all this memorabilia and posters and plaques on the walls. So I show people what it looks like.
gotcha. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, and Charles and William Foster, they both from Connecticut, and you said you've been in the gym with those guys.
Yeah, well, I've known both of them since they were amateurs, and I've actually sparred with Charles before,
Mm,
and I had a couple guys spar with his brother in the gym. I actually saw Charles in the gym for the last fight that we were training for. Stephen Butler, middleweight that I'm training, that's who's fighting Thursday on ESPN. He was fighting his last fight a few months ago, and Charles and William were in the gym, but excuse me. But yeah, Charles just retired like
wow.
10 days ago. He has some kind of injury. I think it's his shoulder, and rather than go through the surgery, they would keep him out for a while because he's old. You know, he's like 30, or he's older than 30, and I guess he just felt like it wasn't worth it, so he's retiring. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I've interviewed quite a bit of fighters, and a lot of guys always tell me, like no fighters really going into that ring 100%. They're always an injury or
Right.
something they're not fully disclosing. So I understand that, in the sport of boxing, injuries happen and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
yeah. Yeah, and so like I've met Vinnie Pass a few years ago. I just met Roy Jones, 2 months ago. You sparred both of those guys. Like, what was the experience like, sparring Vinnie Pass and Roy Jones?
Um, Vinny was fun. Like Vinny treated sparring like a fight. So
Okay.
when you sparred Vinny, you were fighting Vinny. You know, he was if he could knock you out, he'd knock you out. He tried to catch you with big shots, and he'd get really animated. So I liked sparring with Vinny. You know, it was exciting because you knew you had to be on your game. You know,
Mm,
and yeah, obviously with Roy, you have to be on your game. Roy was a guy like I always say, Roy's the only guy that when I spar him, I would make sure to go to bed early the night before. Like I would make sure to get the rest. You know, some guys, it's tough sparring, but you might stay up late watching
mm.
TV or whatever. But with Roy, I was like, man, I gotta get my rest. I gotta be on my game tomorrow. So he was a special fighter for sure.
So Roy sparring, he was like if you went to bed early, was it because like his sparring was he putting hurting on you, or was he just like
I mean, he would spar. You know, he's Roy. I mean, he's he's Roy. At any level. But I've seen him. It's funny. I've seen him do things in the gym he's never done in a real fight. Like amazing moves that he never had to use in a fight. But he's something, man. He was great, and he made me fight better. Like I did pretty well with Roy because he was Roy. Because if you didn't step it up, like you were gonna get just traumatized. You had to be on your game to box with him.
facts? And like when you sparred like Vinny Paz, like was this like before his accident or after, or like did you do both?
Before and after, I sparred with him for the fight that he got hurt. He got hurt at the end of 1991,
Mm,
and his fight for the title was like November 1st. So he got hurt just a couple weeks later, and so I sparred with him for that fight. Then I sparred with him for his comeback fights, and yeah, I was in the gym with him for quite a while. Yeah.
facts. Yeah, so like, did you feel any like certain way, sparring with him after the accident? Did you feel like it wasn't safe, or like did you know that since he
Um,
made a comeback, he was okay?
when I first sparred with him, I was very leery. I didn't
Yeah.
want to, catch him the
Mm,
wrong way. I think
mm,
all of us, every one of us who sparred with him after that, thought the same thing. But he's the type of guy that he would tell you. He would stop and put his hands down and say, "Come on, hit me, hit me,
mm,
hit me." Like don't hold back. And he would try
mm,
to kill you. He
mm,
would make you fight back. You know, he didn't want any pity whatsoever. He's a different kind of guy for sure. His mentality was savage.
Wow. Wow. So like tell us like when did you first start fighting when did you first start training fighters and like when did you first link up with Chad Dawson?
Well, I started training amateur fighters when I was still fighting. Excuse me. I was training amateurs for years. I had national amateur champions, you know, junior Olympic champions and PAL champions, silver gloves. And then I started training. My first pro fighter was actually a female fighter, Elizabeth Mueller, who won the world lightweight title. I started training her in 2000, 1999. Her fights were in 2000 and 2001. So I was still fighting at the time. And after my last fight in 2001, I just, I just evolved into becoming a trainer naturally. You know, it wasn't even a question. It was just something that was supposed to happen. And as far as Chad goes, I knew Chad since he was a little kid. I used to spar with him quite a bit from when he was an amateur and as a pro. And when he was, I think he had about 14 or 15 pro fights when I first started training him when he was a middleweight. And that was in 2004, 2003. 2003, I started training him for the first time.
Okay. And like, what's your biggest moment with Chad Dawson when he won the rematch over Roy Jones? Not over Roy Jones, but Bernard Hopkins.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. He was, that was one of the biggest fights of the decade. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, like, and he got cut bad in that fight. So like, how were you able to like keep him composed and keep him focused despite all that?
Just in the way I talk to him and you have to. A lot of trainers, they make mistakes because they panic a little bit when they see the blood, and the fighter instantly senses it. And for me, when he got cut, when any fighter gets cut, but him, because it's already done, the damage is done. So I don't even mention the cut. I ignore it, because I know the cut man is taking care of what he has to, and whatever's going to happen is going to happen. So, it's not like I'm going to be like, oh man, you're cut bad. I can't do that, so I don't even mention it. I pretend it didn't even happen. And, I would think that's the best way because, you only have a minute in between rounds, and to sit there and waste a few seconds talking about how bad the cut is wouldn't help the fighter at all.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. I like that. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So that fight happened at the Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City. I've been in that venue a few times. I was there in January. Danny Garcia Promotions. That was his first card, and I was also there last July when Jon Boots and his fought Ramon Villa. Like, what do you like Boots as a fighter, and do you think he's ready for the likes of Terence Crawford?
I mean, I like him as a fighter. He's obviously, a good prospect, and but I've seen it too many times in history where a guy comes up and he starts looking good, and everybody's like, "Oh, he's gonna beat this one. He's gonna relax, man, relax." Like he's a young guy. He's got time. He's young in the pro game. He doesn't have a lot of fights. I mean, as far as Terence Crawford, I mean, that's just, I think that's ridiculous. Let him have his time and take his time and build himself up. But people, like I said, I would never, just because a guy looks really good, young, and he's scored a few good victories, it means something, but it doesn't mean everything. Like, these people are putting him like, oh, Terence is scared of him. I mean, come on, that's it's insanity.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Like, Crawford just beat, he just beat the big fish in Errol Spence. So I don't believe he's ducking or anything like that. No. So yeah. I know fans and people like to talk. So you're always gonna hear stuff like that. But so you train, Arthur Better Biv. Like, when did you first start training and working with him?
Well, I'm his assistant trainer. His main trainer is Mark Ramsey. But I started with Arthur in the very beginning of 2016.
Wow. So you've been with him for quite a bit then.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So like, how strong is he? And is he like one of the biggest punchers that you've ever came across or worked with?
No, he's the biggest,
Wow.
and he's a special fighter, man. And like everybody that spars with him, and they can't, even the cocky guys, they can't hide it. Like they can't. I've never heard anyone say, "Oh, he doesn't hit that hard." Like never. Like a lot of guys would love to say that. A lot of guys, they like to downplay someone. Oh, you don't hit that hard. It's not that bad. But I've seen top guys say, "Man, this guy, it's hard." Like
Wow.
they're amazed. Yeah, he's got special power for sure.
Wow. Wow. So it's him and Dimitri Bivol a goal for June.
Yeah, we're all set.
Okay. So my question is, if he gets past Dimitri Bivol, we got David Benavidez moving up the weight to fight Alexander. I'm not sure how you say the guy's last name. If they both get past their next opponents, is that a fight that you would anticipate?
I would think so. And I'll tell you something. And I've said this before on the air.
Okay.
Now Benavidez is a good fighter. Obviously, he's good, right? I don't think he's a problem at all for Arthur. I think he's perfect for Arthur to fight. I think all the things that make him good would be his undoing against Arthur. If he thinks he's gonna come in and overpower Arthur, he's dreaming. Like people are dreaming. Like that's not happening. You can forget that. Arthur's everything Benavidez is and more. So, I like the kid as a fighter and he's strong and all that, but I mean, there's no way. I think he'd be easy fight for Arthur.
Gotcha. Yeah. It's a fight as a fan I would love to see. But it's definitely a fight I would love to see. So like, tell us about how you first got involved in working, with disabled fighters, disadvantaged fighters. Understand that you have like a charity or something like where you help these guys.
Yeah, it's nothing like official. It's just me. I just do it on my own.
Okay.
Basically, what happened was about 7 years ago, give it, whenever it was, I'm not sure, 7 or 8 years ago, I had heard that Wilfred Benitez was in some trouble, physically, and the family takes care of him, and he needed money for something. I don't remember what it was for, but they were trying to raise some money for him, and I thought I had a piece of memorabilia. I believe it was something signed by Roy Jones. Excuse me. Now, tired. I keep yawning. I'm sorry. I believe it was a Roy Jones signature, and I'm not a big autograph guy. I don't really care about autographs. So I said, man, you know what I'll do? I'll sell this to I'll auction it off on my Facebook, and I'll give the money to Wilfred. It'll be easy. So I did it, and I forget how much it was, but it was very easy. And so I just thought to myself, wow, this is kind of crazy. Like I could sell stuff. I have posters and I have books and I have programs and I have autographs. I said, I could sell this stuff easy and just give the money. I won't even be missing the money because it's just this stuff that I've accumulated over the years. And so I started doing that. And then I started raising more and more. And then I started helping Joe McClellan. And then I started helping Pritchard Cologne. And then people started sending me stuff in the mail. Like, hey, man, I'll send you a signed glove by Lennox Lewis, to donate to the cause. And now, like Christy Martin, if you remember Christy Martin, champion, she just called me like 3 days ago. And she's like, okay, listen, I got some pictures signed. I'm going to send them to you. You can auction them off to help the fighters. And I had another guy the other day came to my gym and brought me a box full of, he has a Joe Kazagi signed glove and different things. So I'm going to put all this stuff up and people will bid on it. And they like helping, and give the money, spread the money. And there's a few guys I help that I don't publicize because they're having troubles, but people don't know that they're having trouble. So I don't want to expose them. So I don't tell their names. But the
Gotcha.
ones help that you would know that everybody already knows their problems, their situation is Wilfred Benitez, Gerald McClellan, and Pritchard Cologne.
Yes, yeah, I know those stories, and it's tragic. It's tragic that happened to those guys. But salute to you, man. Salute to everybody, that helps you. I think that's awesome what you're doing, because, like, there's a saying, you can't play boxing. It's a brutal sport. Guys get hurt. There's fighters that pass away. So, like, salute to you for that, man. That's awesome. I think that's very awesome what you're doing, man. I hope you keep that up, and everybody keep on donating and helping you out with that as well.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. So that brings me to my next question. There's a lot of referees, and referees can see things that fans can't see. Sitting outside of these fights, fans can't see everything. So since we have a lot of fighters that's been injured or get seriously hurt after fights, do you like when refs stop fights early? Like, we just had a fight last night, and there's a lot of people debating this stoppage. So, like, in your professional opinion, like, with all these injuries and stuff in the sport, do you like when refs stop fights early?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't want it stopped early. I want to stop it at the right time. But sometimes when a ref stops a fight and it appears on TV that it was too early, you have to talk to him first and say, listen, why'd you stop? And he'll tell you, listen, I was 2 feet away. This guy's eyes were glazed. His eyeballs were shaking, wobbling. He sees things. He gets a feel for a fighter. He might have heard the guy say something. He might have heard the guy moan in pain. Anything could happen. So I try not to second guess referees too much, because they're right there. Like, they're literally right in the, they're closer than anyone on earth is to the action, other than the fighters themselves. So I try not to come down on them too hard when they stop it too early.
Yeah, but I know that referees. We can take 20 weeks. I've interviewed 20 weeks. I have a lot of respect for 20 weeks, and I remember it was a fight that he ref between David Morrell and Ada Shabosinelli, and after that fight, Shabosinelli went into a coma. So I can see referees, being very cautious and trying to prevent fighters from that from happening fighters in the future. Passing out and going into coma. So I salute the referees. I know they have a very tough job. So I
would absolutely not want to be a referee. There's,
gotcha.
You've got to make those calls. Like, once you stop the fight, that's it. It's over. Like, you cannot go back and say, oh, no, keep fighting. So you stop a fight on a guy, like, that's it. His career is damaged, because no fighter wants to get stopped. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you stop the fight. You can't 4 seconds later go, oh, no, forget it. Forget I did that. Once you do it, it's good. So a lot of guys, they don't necessarily want to pull that trigger until they're really, really pushed to do so. That's a tough spot to be in. I wouldn't want to be in that spot.
Gotcha. Yeah, for sure, man. Like I said, referees have a very tough job. They're the third man in the ring. But I salute to them. I salute the referees, man. So tell us, you have a book out called the IceMan Diaries. Like, tell us about that. Was it like a tough process, writing the book?
It's I haven't even finished it yet. It's still a tough process. Yeah, I've been writing it for a long time. I mean, honestly, some of the reason is I just, I don't concentrate on it all the time. I have a lot of it done, but I've got a lot of things going on with training fighters and different things I'm doing, and I've kind of even forgotten about it at times. But I am anxious to get it finished, because I think it's going to be one of the most unique boxing books ever written. And when I say that is because I tell a lot of things that I think, because I'm a fan as well. So I understand what fans want to read about. And I tell all that stuff because I've read a lot of autobiographies of some of the biggest fighters ever, and good books and interesting, but they didn't always tell everything that I wanted to know about. and from a fighter's perspective, and part of that reason is, and part of the reason my book is taking so long is because if you notice, when you read a book like Muhammad Ali, right? His autobiography, it's called The Greatest, and it says The Greatest by Muhammad Ali, and then underneath that it'll say with Dave Anderson, right? What that means is Dave Anderson wrote the book, and Muhammad Ali just told him stories, and Dave Anderson wrote the book. No fighter has ever written his own autobiography, even though they'll say, yeah, Raging Bull by Jake LaMotta. Jake LaMotta didn't write that book. Somebody wrote it for him. So they changed the wording. Like if I was going to write your book, you would tell me something, and then I would change the wording the way that I want it to make it sound good. So it's not your words. With my book, every word is mine. Like, people read excerpts from it. I let friends of mine read stuff, and every one of them has said the same thing. They say, man, it's just like reading it is like listening to you talk. Like, you write like you talk. We know you wrote it. And that's what I really like. So that's another reason why it's taken so long, because I'm going to make sure it's all me. It's not a ghostwriter. So that's why it's taken so long. But I think it'll be worth it once it actually comes out.
Okay, yeah, definitely be anticipating that stuff. Yeah. Now, I was talking with you earlier about the Mohegan Sun Casino. Showtime recently, just closed its doors, and looks like PBC struck a deal with Amazon. Would you like to see, PBC and Amazon bring a lot of televised fight cards to the Mohegan Sun, in the future?
And Foxwoods, Casino, back in the day, I mean, I fought Michael Nunn there. I fought there. But I fought Michael Nunn there. James Toney fought there. Hector Camacho, Larry Holmes, Butterbean. It was Shane Mosley. It was at one point maybe the greatest venue in the world for fights. And I would love to see both casinos showing fights there. It used to be, everybody in this area where I live in New England, we knew, like, there's always going to be big fights at the Mohegan Sun and Foxwoods. Let's go. It's everybody's going. And, it hasn't been like that for a long time.
Okay. Yeah. And speaking of, Michael Nunn, was he your toughest fight?
No, I would say my toughest fight was Henry Maske, when I fought for the world title against Henry Maske in Germany. Henry was, he was 6'4". He was southpaw. He was really disciplined. He fought, in a really straight up, stand up position. He had the European style. He was probably the toughest fight.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. And like I was told you know everybody. You know everybody. You got everybody's phone number. I was told there's a video of Mike Tyson saying, hey, if you want somebody's phone number, you call John Scully.
Yeah. So I gave Mike a few numbers of guys that he hadn't talked to in 35 years, and he was amazed. Yeah.
So like, are you like very good friends with Mike Tyson? I know he used to live right in Connecticut. Did you ever like go to his house when he was in Connecticut?
No, I never went there when he lived here. I went there later on. It's actually not that far from me, but I never went. But me and Mike don't hang out or anything, but he's called me on the phone a few times. I've sent him some stuff in the mail that he wanted, from his amateur career and things like that. He called me, and when we see each other is very cordial, but I don't hang out with him or anything like that.
Got you. That's awesome. You got a lot of a lot of guys, got a lot of friendships in the sport of boxing. So that's awesome, man.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So out of everything that you've done and do in the sport of boxing, from fighting to training amateurs to training professional fighters, like, what did you enjoy the most out of all those things?
Well, anybody who would not say this, I think, is lying. Being a fighter, there's nothing like being a fighter. Nothing like that. Any trainer in the world people like being trainers. I like being a trainer, but anybody in the world says they like that better than being a fighter, I think they're lying. Like there's nothing like being the fighter. When you walk in the room at a fight, at the press conference, and you walk in that ring. I mean, nobody's there to see the trainer, nobody's there to see the referee, nobody's there to see the judge, nobody's there to see the promoter. They're there to see the fighter. And when you walk in, you're that guy. I don't care if you're an opponent. You're the opponent. You're the guy who's supposed to lose, but you're still the guy. You're still the guy people want to see. And even the people in the crowd who insult you because you're the opponent they know they can't do what you do, even though they're in the process of calling you a bum. But if you ask them, they'd go, yeah, I can't do that. And if they do think they could do it, they're dreaming. So being the fighter, and I could tell you, I'll give an example. I could tell you 10 of the biggest fights in history, right? And you'll remember it instantly. You remember where you were when you watched it. You remember, who won. You remember everything. And I'll ask you, who was in the corner with the fighter? And the majority of times, you're going to have no idea. You're not going to have a clue who was in there. You will not remember.
Right.
So that's just the way it is. We remember the fighters. And, being the fighter, without the fighter, there's no boxing. If all the boxers stopped, all the trainers and managers and promoters and ring announcers and judges and doctors would have to quit. They would have to go home because there'd be nobody to watch. So there's nothing like being the fighter.
Got you. That's good to hear, man. That's good to hear. You made a good analogy there. And so my last question for you is what are some hobbies that you have outside of the sport of boxing?
Man, I mean, it's a funny thing. My wife's always saying, all you care about is your boxing. All you care about is your boxing. And I never really thought of it in those terms, but like when I look at my phone, it amuses me. When I look through my phone once in a while, I'll be looking for a number, right? And I have a lot of numbers. So I'm scrolling through, looking through the numbers, and I realize, oh man, every number I have in my phone is boxing related somehow. Mostly fighters, but trainers, matchmakers, or whatever, promoters. And I mean, there's not a lot that I do really, other than watch Seinfeld. There's not a lot that I do that doesn't have something to do with boxing. I guess my wife and daughter, we watch movies. I guess movies. That's probably a hobby more than anything else other than boxing. Would probably be watching movies.
Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So one more question I meant to ask you earlier. So it's a lot of foreign fighters, fighters from overseas that might have American trainers. So is there a language barrier? Is it easy to train a fighter, that doesn't speak the same language, or how does it work out?
Arthur, when I first started with him, his English wasn't as good as it is now.
Okay.
But it wasn't a problem. It wasn't really a problem. And I actually trained a Puerto Rican fighter one time, and he didn't speak English, but he knew enough of the boxing. He didn't understand English, but he understood boxing. Okay. So I could say things to him like left hook to the body, and I could, demonstrate it. And he knew exactly what I was talking about. And I knew enough words like duro, means harder, and so I could imitate the left. I could show him the left hook, and I could say duro, so he would know I'm telling him to throw the left hook harder. And it really wasn't a problem. And Arthur hasn't been a problem. So I'd imagine for some people it might be, but I anytime I've come into that situation, I speak the language of boxing, and gotcha. they do too. So we're all right.
All right. So man, I appreciate taking this time. I know you got some things to do later. Anything you want to say out in closing?
I just if anybody's interested in boxing, you could follow me on my Facebook pages. Jon the IceMan Scully and IceMan Jon Scully. Those are my 2 pages. But if anybody's interested in helping, you know, I help Wilfred Benitez, Joe McClellan, Pritchard Cologne, and a few other guys. You know, you could follow me or friend me on the Facebook, and you know, if you wanted to buy things, you know, I have pictures and programs and gloves and all. I have a WBC belt I'm getting ready to put up for auction. Nobody in the world has these names that I had, because I have access to a wide variety of people from different areas. They could get one, but they can't get the other one. I get them all. So I have that belt, which I'm going to be put. Follow me for those type of reasons. I'm on the Facebook, and if you can't friend request me, you can follow me.
All right. Yeah, so like everybody that watches on the Playback, I hope they, you know, give you a follow, you know, donate, and, you know, especially help out like with the disabled fighters, man. Cause like I said, man, that's awesome. That's awesome what you're doing, man. So like, salute to you for that. Yeah, salute to you for that. Yeah, and like I said, I'm anticipating, you know, Better Biv, you know, Dimitri Bivol. So like, I'm gonna be looking forward to that fight in June. So
yes, sir, I am too.
All right, yeah. So we go ahead and close it out, man. Like I said, I appreciate the interview. You know, everybody, you know, that watches on the Playback, like definitely get with Jon Scully. You know, help out White with his cause. Like, yeah. So we go ahead and end it, man. You guys know where I'm at, man. I'm on Facebook. It's Todd Finney. Instagram, you know, the Legend 3347. TikTok, the Legend 3347. And you guys just witnessed the 17th interview on the Indies Corner podcast. On that note, be out. Peace.